wife, the expect to take an animal lover. That's it, you kill that thing, you leave it at the house. We're not having turkey for 4 years, just in case that's the turkey. I love those things, man. I used to, when they were buying a house with a couple of grants, and we tried to hang it. Yeah, it's right on my front porch, I could have found it. It was, you could throw whatever she was throwing.
I woke up one morning about 10 years ago. I had a damn right on high up, I got a deer in the front door.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, nobody's going to believe that. It was like 4 to 6 in the morning. But my neighbor yelled at me. You just had deer in the door. Last time I called, it was running towards Windsor Avenue.
It was a box.
Oh, yeah, the box.
Years ago, and all the rabbits were straight out. They come out from the morning to walk the door. 100 rabbits, about a fox. You know?
Keep going.
No, you still got that street sign there?
Yeah.
You look at that.
It's hanging up there.
That was one of the original.
My son went down there.
Somebody was shooting. If you look at it, I know somebody was shooting directly right and shoot bullets through there.
I want to give it to the Historic Society. If I know, I don't want to take it. So, one night I'll come up. You don't mind that, do you?
When's the last time somebody could shoot a rifle in the village?
Legally.
Had it washed? No, but I just took the whole thing off.
All rise.
I'm missing somebody. He's washing his hands.
You gotta wait for Bill.
Yeah. Gotta wait for Bill.
Did you know we're out here?
Yeah, he does. I think he was just trying to stay out the last couple. Yeah.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing in honor of those serving in the military. Great, thank you. It's working, Nicole? Thank you all for coming tonight. Make a motion to approve previous board minutes, April 7th, April 21st, 2025. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Suffolk County Police, I don't see anybody here from there. If they come, we'll let them jump up. Okay, reports of the mayor and the board of trustees. Trustee Fawcett, please start.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, board, residents. Signs everywhere is the theme of the month. You see the drive around the village, you notice that we have 25-mile-an-hour signs all throughout the village now. The speed limit is officially 25 miles an hour in the village. We have slow down our town signs on almost every corner of the village. Mike and his guys have been busy out there doing that. They've also been replacing and fixing some of the signs that over the years have faded, replacing those as well. We've officially got the WeDo boat into the lakes. I think, Mike, we're having a little bit of a learning curve, but it's going to be great. We'll be able to get those lakes really situated this spring and hopefully have it nice and clear for the summer. The swans I think, are nesting already, so we'll have to navigate that as well. And then we've just done general maintenance. We see a lot more windstorms in the village than we have in the past. And anytime we have a windstorm, our trees that are 100 years old lose a few branches. So they're out there cleaning those up almost every Monday after a weekend, as well as pulling the garbage and doing those things that they do every day. That kind of seem to go unnoticed, but if you go outside of Brightwoods, you really notice the trash, and you don't see that in Brightwoods because of Mike's guys. And then lastly, I think we're getting ready for spring. They power washed the bridges, the gazebo, getting ready for some paint. One of the things that when we did the bridges, we wanted to make sure that we maintained them, just not let them go back into disrepair. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much.
Okay, you had mentioned the 25-mile-an-hour sign. Over in the village of Babylon, they're on 25 mile an hour also. So I think more and more villages will see it, that when we control our smaller environment, everyone's trying to give it a shot to slow people down. Is it working? But at least we're trying. Trustee Petter?
Yep, the traffic study was completed at the end of last week. The data is being compiled now. Hopefully we'll have the information in the next week or so with ideas for solutions to our traffic issues in the village. As Trustee Fawcett said, we had our town slow down this past weekend. Saw the signs everywhere. The speed limit's 25 now, and hopefully we can get cars to slow down in the neighborhood.
Okay, great. Trustee Delvecchio?
We've had a lot of events in April. In May, coming up, we have our spring block party. That's the weekend, May 17th. Walker Beach passes are for sale. And we're starting to brainstorm about adding some park equipment to at least Mississippi Park, maybe Walker, just some extra things here and there to get the kids excited. Because the parks are busy, really busy. That's all I got.
Yeah, as far as the equipment, it's the little pieces of equipment that keep it fresh the whole time. If we don't have to go and spend, like that bus that we put in was what, $5,000 or $6,000, and then you have to put it in, and you have to prepare around it, and everything costs a lot of money. Over by Gardner Park, they're putting it, I think it's almost a $500,000 new set of park equipment over there. It's all going to be handicapped accessible, but it's a $500,000. So if we keep it fresh by adding all the little things, then I think it's an improvement to the parks. We're not trying to make it overbuilt like a lot of the schools. The schools spent a ton of money on playgrounds, but when school's out, there's nobody there. They're in Mississippi Park. So, okay. All right, Trustee Zep.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. April was a busy month for the building department. 16 permits were issued. We're still waiting for the application from National Grid for their improvement work that they're doing on Orinoco. The Peter Pan Diner started some interior demo work, so that seems to be moving along a little bit. Finally, the two homes down on the corner of Windsor and Montauk Highway were issued their C rows, which is great. Ongoing issues with code right now in the village. Landscapers still operating without permits, so they are getting ticketed. If you have a landscaper, warn them if they don't have the permit in place, they're going to get ticketed. We have no tolerance on that. Also, people's contractors are starting too early. Code's a bit all over that as well, but there's certain days that if our code person's out, it's an issue for people in the village. And lastly, parking at the top of the canal. Boating season is upon us, and the time just to sit there and park is over. It's for boaters with to park down there, only not just to hang out, it's not a park. Upcoming with the canal, since I'm going to be the new harbor master, there's some things we're going to work on. We're going to need some new signage down there. We talked to Trustee Fawcett about the lighting, the navigational lights at the top of the canal as well, or the bottom of the canal. Just some things like that. So that'll be upcoming when I'm no longer sitting up here. That's all I have.
Thank you. Just want to mention again, the Art Town slowed down. I want to thank all the volunteers who did put all the signs up around the village. Some people took 1 block, some people like Chris Pace did 3 blocks. So there was about probably about 25 people doing that. So when we spread out the work, it's not nearly as difficult to do. So I want to thank all them for helping out. If people didn't hear, the other turkey got killed over the weekend. Yeah, we think by train again. It was found over by Faber, and so that was over the weekend. So I figured I would tell you so you don't keep looking. Over the weekend, we had a lot of issues, a lot of complaints, a lot of texting to me about solicitors in the village. We cannot legally stop them from going door to door. If people have the no solicitor sign, that's supposed to stop them. But anyway, they have the right to go up to anybody's door. This past week, we had a lot of alarm people and a lot of mosquito people, I believe. We are reviewing what we have on the books and what we can change it to try to stop them from coming. But they were going back to the same houses over and over and over. So we're going to try to look into it to see if we can slow that down a little bit. Tomorrow night over at the library, each month, first Tuesday of each month, the 3rd Precinct has a safety meeting. And they give you an update of what's been going on. And I've been at a couple of them. There's some fluff in them, but at least they give you what's going on. They give you what they believe is going on. What they do is they change it from place to place. They have it in Brentwood, Central Islip, West Islip, and I believe somewhere else. The last time it was at Bay Shore, there was about 200 people there. But they don't advertise it anywhere. So I found out about it over the weekend, and we put out emails and Facebook on it. So we're hoping to generate some people to come. We shared it onto some of the other pages. So I appreciate all what the police do, but the fact that there's no effort to tell people when these are, you had to dig for about 25 minutes to try to find out where it was posted that it's at the Bay Shore Library. Even the library is not posted there. So we did post it out there. We're hoping some people come out. When we have the officer come here, generally we get new people. They know a little bit. When they have this monthly meeting, they have at least 4 or 5 of them there. We have the, all the suits there, and you can directly ask them what's going on. So if anybody can make it tomorrow night at 7 o'clock over at the Bay Shore Library. We mentioned that we do BOT. We're trying to see what we can do with that, and that's all I have for now. Anybody else want to? Anything you forgot? Okay. All right. The next thing on the agenda is this is for the paving. If you're following, everybody should have access to pamphlets in the back, right? Everybody should have the full agenda. This last year, during this fiscal year, we did a lot of work on all the service roads and some other loose ends. This is the list of all the service roads that have to be finished now that National Grid has done their work. They partially paid for it, so we paid for it. So if you have a service road, they all should be completed within the month. So permission to hire Suffolk Paving as per town contract to pave the following service roads for $259,088. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We added a couple of places. John Clark will be happy to hear that Hiawatha is being done between Pine and Ackerson finally. That's like one of the last. We've gone through the whole cycle of all the roads now. So that area and Peters Boulevard from Hiawatha to Orinoco. So once these are done, the entire village has been done over the last 15 years. So now this starts all over again. Orinoco's in terrible shape, but because of different development, we want to wait to see what happens before we go and do the road and then have to dig it up again. So we're trying trying to not do things twice. So I make a motion, permission to hire Suffolk Paving as per town contract to pave the following roads for $30,944. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the next thing is on the term limits and extending terms and compensation. Everybody in the village should have got this flyer. You know, we took the time to try to explain the process. Nicole took the time to survey. These are all the villages in Suffolk County on the back. There's 32 villages on the back. We didn't go into Nassau. Nassau has 60, I think, 4 villages, and a lot of them are, you know, 500 people, 400 people. So we stuck to Suffolk County. It kind of gave us a good idea. It was interesting to me to see how few of them, you know, have no term limits. I think 11 or 12 have 4-year terms instead of 2-year terms. So it's just, hopefully everyone got a chance to digest this a little bit. Nicole, did you have copies for everybody out there
Yes,
too?
they should be in the back.
So I just want to let Charlie take the lead here and just explain what the process is a little more again.
Mr. Mayor, motion to open the public hearing, please.
I make a motion to open the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. There are 3 laws we're under consideration this evening. The first one is section 19-9, terms of office. And that will extend the elected term of the mayor and the elected term of the trustees from 2 to 4 years. That requires a mandatory referendum. That means it will be on the ballot as a proposition for the June 17th election this coming June. And tonight, if the board adopts
Just
it...
to, it doesn't take effect until...
Right. It does not take effect until 2026. But tonight, if the board adopts this law, it will be on the... it will be a referendum, and it doesn't become effective unless it passes referendum. The second law this evening is the term limit law, which would essentially say, which says no person who is elected to the office of mayor or trustee in the village of Brightwaters after the effective date of this section shall serve more than 3 consecutive 4-year terms. Right now, the current law is 4 consecutive 2-year terms, so we're changing. However, that law would not become effective unless the referendum extending the elected term from 2 to 4 years passes. That law does not need to go out to referendum, the term limit law. It would be, we have a public hearing this evening. I'll ask the board to reserve decision on it. If the extending of the elected term law passes by referendum, then at the July Board of Trustees meeting, I would ask that the trustees approve that law. Because once you approve it, then we have 20 days to file it with the state so it becomes effective. The third law, which is local law number 6, section 19-13, compensation of officers. And that would be, that says, in the village of Brightwaters, subject to a public hearing, the annual compensation of the mayor and trustees shall be established in the annual budget in accordance with New York State Village Law section 5-508. Traditionally, the way it's done, if a village elected officers wanted to compensate themselves, you do not have a specific law in the books that says the mayor shall earn X, the trustee shall earn Y. That is done by making it part of a budget and making it part of the budget line. This local law allows the Board of Trustees and the mayor to add that budget line of compensation for the trustee and that budget line for compensation for the mayor. That also does not require any type of referendum. However, the mayor and Board of Trustees, they will tonight by resolution, they will send that out to referendum, which the board can do. So that will also be a ballot proposition on the June 17th election. There will be 2 propositions. The first one, mandatory, which is extending the elected term from 2 to 4 years. And the second one, voluntary by this board, adding a budget line for compensation in the budget. What the number will be, what the compensation will be, I think we have an idea, but we do not put that in the law. We talk about that in the budget, and you'll adopt it as part of the budget going forward.
But it is in our budget, 5,000 for the mayor and
I did
2,500
that, yes.
for the
Yeah,
trustees.
you're right. Yes, it is $5,000 for the mayor, $2,500 per year for the trustees, yes. So that's essentially what these laws are. Like I said, only one needs to go to referendum, but the mayor and the board are sending two. The annual compensation for the budget line and the mandatory one, which is the extending the electoral term from 2 to 4 years. So that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'm just going to go up to the board first, and then we'll open it up to the public. So does anybody on the board have anything to add to Charlie before I open it up to the people?
I just want to state that, we did a lot of due diligence on this, looked at a lot of the villages that are comparable to ours to see what the compensation and term limits are. People may not realize this, but when you run for elected office, it costs quite a bit of money to actually do that. We don't have the PAC, we don't have the super PAC, we don't have any fundraisers to raise money for our candidacies. So it kind of comes out of our own pocket. And I will say this, John and I, ever since we've been involved in this village, the Walker Beach Nights, we were the first ones to ever sponsor that. That again came out of our pockets because that was the right thing to do. So, compensation, it's not a lot of money. If you actually add up the hours that we do, it's below minimum wage, but it does offset what we put out of our pocket because we want to be good neighbors. So that's what I say.
Anybody else on the board want to add anything? Okay, we'll open it up to the public. If I call on you, please say your name, address, and who wants to be first? Anybody?
Joe McDermott, 540 Pine Boulevard. Is this public hearing, we're going to talk about everything at one public hearing? Or is it gonna be 3 separate public hearings?
No.
3 separate laws?
You can talk about anything under this umbrella right now.
Okay.
Compensation, the length of offices and
Okay.
stuff. That's all right now. All right. Anyone else? Bob?
Bob Fisher, 80 Northway Drive. First of all, I want to thank the board and the village staff for this chart because it's great. It's really
It was
neat to
interesting,
know
I
this.
thought.
It's fascinating. Two things come to me, and the first is that with only a few exceptions, the villages that do compensate are substantially bigger than ours and have a substantial business tax base. We're not big, we don't have much of a business tax base, and neither of those two are going to change. So we just don't have the cash flow that goes along with these. Think the village of Lindenhurst, which is the largest village in the state of New York. So no surprise that they do what they do. The best side of this, though, is that we don't have the problems that go along with a big village. And that's not going to change either. So in my view, the job that you're all doing, and we all thank you for it because we know it takes time. But the job is doable by an average resident. We have 1,100 homes here, and in that we've always had a very substantial number of people who are willing to serve. And for that, we, the citizens, have always been thankful. And to have the name honorable on your names once you're elected is something you can't buy. So we would appreciate that. I would appreciate, rather, I'm hoping that the village turns this down because of the second reason that stands out loud and clear. Of all the villages here, we're the only ones who have had compensation and turned it down vociferously. And then when it came up again a few years later, it was again turned down. So clearly we have a very conservatively run, very efficient government operation, and it runs well, and in my mind, there's no need to change that.
And that's why I felt, Bob, it was important that we put it out for vote.
Absolutely.
We could have voted on these things. I felt it was important to put it out there.
I agree.
So,
I agree, 100%.
yeah, like some of them, it's deceiving here, and we don't have it on here. Lindenhurst, they all have, full medical benefits, everyone on their board, and probably at least maybe a dozen of them on here have that. So we don't have that in the equation. We were just trying to make it simple with compensation. But I see you, I hear your point.
Good.
Again, that's why I felt it was important to let people get out to come in and vote.
On the subject of terms and term limits. Interesting point. We've done the experiment. It hasn't been that long that we've had term limits. In my view, what it's done is to stop good people from continuing to serve the village as long as they want to. all of you have the choice every 2 years right now of saying, I have another 2 years, I'll serve the village. We have a choice as voters to say, I want those people to serve for another 2 years. So if it were up to me, I would say, keep it at 2 years, ditch the whole idea of term limits. At least in this village, it doesn't seem necessary. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Anybody else?
Hey, a couple things. I don't know if I'll. This village's been here for 100 years. We always had 2-year terms. Seemed like to work. Even when I was a mayor, the 2 years worked. I'd like to hear from each board member why they feel a need to go from, I heard you, and thanks for explaining that, nice. I'd like to hear from the other board members why they feel it's a need to go from 2 years to 4 years. So I'm going to start left to right. Mr. Zapp, why do you feel the need to put it, or do you feel the need to go from 2 to 4 years?
I think it's a good idea, honestly. I think in order to get things done here, you do need more than 2 years your first go around. And then the initial 4 years would be great, get your feet wet, understand how the village is truly working behind the scenes, and be able to accomplish the goals. I think it's a good idea. I've been up here now for 8. I'm turned out now, so I'm done. I have nothing self-serving by advocating for this, but I think it's a good idea. I'm all for it.
What about Mr. Bacchio?
From my understanding, we had to bring extending the term limits up for referendum to be able to also ask the other 2 questions we want to ask with the referendum. So with that order of things, I knew that we had to do it this way. Yes, my first 2 years here, I felt like went off as a blink. You don't learn anything until you've been on this board for a few terms. I term limit out before I turn 40, and I'd like to stick around a little bit longer than that. So that's how I see this.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, may I just add, going forward, these new term limits, and it will not affect anybody on this board. Because we are changing the scope, we are changing the length of terms, and we are changing the term limits, the old law is gone. If it passes, the new law affects nobody on this board. You start anew. The clock starts anew.
Yeah, as far as me, I was fine with the 2 years, but like these guys said, 2 years goes very quickly. It goes like a bat of an eye. You're just getting your feet going and 2 years is up. Bellport just went through this whole thing of changing it from 2 to 4 years and 3 4-year terms. So in my conversations with them, this seems to be what's good for them. They're a little bigger than us as far as their downtown, but I would compare us to them size-wise. I want to leave it up to the voters. I'm kind of fine either way, but I'm done now too. I'm done next June, and Bob, my wife, doesn't want anything extended any more than next June. So, I'm done. So any of these changes of time doesn't affect me. It's for the next people. But again, like they're saying, 2 years goes very quickly, so I'm fine either way. So.
Yeah, how do you do it? So it goes back to the same idea, is that 2 years, I'm obviously the newest one here. It's gone like that, and I'm going to be, a year from now going up for an election. Whereas if you had the 4 years, I feel like you have the opportunity to get comfortable and learn your job and do it before you're, running for another election that quickly.
Well, tell them before he came out here, I had to show him what the bathroom was.
But, yeah, that's
Here's my feeling. That's why the elections are offset, right? So mayor and 2 trustees run. They're there when you get there. They should show you the ropes. It's such a small village where when I served up there, I served with McNulty for 1 year. He took me under his wing, and he taught me a lot of stuff. And so did Jack Rear. So it's a small village, you can adapt pretty good. And if you're doing a good job, which everyone up there is doing a good job, you run again. And this way, he said, yeah, he's doing a good job. He did a good job for 2 years. To me, when you're going to go from 2 years to 4 years, you're taking someone's voice away. So if someone thinks you are not doing an adequate job for the village, they have a right to vote you out after 2 years. So that's why I think 2 years is good, because every 2 years, you're taking the people's voice away. So you're not saying, you're not giving people a choice. This village was always 2 years, and every 2 years, people had a chance to, you know, for the better word, lack of judge you, make sure that you're the right person to serve the village. Now, by doing this, you're not listening to the people. You're not saying, we're going to say, oh, we're going to do 4 years. Yeah,
Joe, we are listening to the people because they're the ones who are going to vote on this.
I know.
To say we're not listening to the people is not an accurate term.
You're putting it
We're
up.
here to listen to the people, and that's why we're letting them vote on it.
You're right in a sense, but you're also doing something that some people could say is self-serving.
Today,
Listen, I sat up there, I'm just telling you what people say, when you do something, that you're doing it, you're actually changing the law for yourselves. You're changing it because you want to be there longer. You're telling the audience that, you know what, I can't do my job in 2 years, I need 4 years to do my job. So think about that, Bill. You just said, I'm just getting my feet wet, I need more time. But a lot of people that came before you for 100 years did the job in 2 years. I didn't know anything about being a mayor, and I had 2 new trustees up there. There was 3 of us sitting up there. We looked at each other with Donna Barnett sitting there, and we went in the back and said, holy sugar. We said a few other things, but you know what? People around help. It's an easy village, it's small, something to think about. I don't think it's
Yeah,
something- I don't
Joe,
think-
but maybe
I don't think
that's
it's
what
gonna go
that's what
well.
we're saying, but maybe this is the right way to go, and that's why it's being put out to vote.
Yeah, I just
Instead of,
don't,
we're not,
I don't think
So
it's.
I think honestly, Joe, I mean, you're kind of making it, you're painting it a little too simple. So when you actually build a plan to execute on a long-term strategy in the village over 2 years, do you think that's physically responsible?
Yeah, because.
Okay, I don't think so. I think that we put a plan in place for the roads. I think we put a plan in place for the lakes. I think we put a plan in place for the beaches. I think we put a plan in place for the parks. It didn't happen in the last 2 years, Jim. It's
I
happened over
understand
the
that.
last 6. If you go around the village and you see all these events and all the people that come out, it didn't happen over 2 years. It's happened over 10. And it was because we put a plan in place and we executed on it. And this board has been pretty consistent, except for the people that turned out. And that's what we do. So by doing it in 2-year increments, you have your opinion and I have mine. I don't think if you build a plan, you can't execute in 1 year. We don't have the kind of money to do that. I think you build a plan and you execute it year over year over year, just like we're about to pay off that bond for the canal. So we'll have extra money that will be able to put back into the village.
Right.
That's how you execute a plan.
Yeah,
Not 2 years.
I know that. I put the plan in place to go out to bond to do the roads. When I left after 4 years, I put the faith in the people that came before me, and after that, you know what? They cared about the village, and they continued to plan. And Mayor Valdini did a nice job, and now we're finishing up the roads. So I don't agree with your this thing, because the next people that come after you should be there. The people, well, that's my point.
No, Joe, that's fine. That's what, we're not making these decisions behind closed doors. We're not doing anything at working meetings. We're not doing anything. Everything's now. And we appreciate your input, especially with your experience on being mayor and all. It's important. So we're here to listen.
Rich, they have Lake View Avenue North. Question, if you put this in, you're going to have 2 trustees coming in 2026 and then 2 trustees coming in 2027. But if they go for 4 years and there's nobody in 2028, 2029, is there a way to structure this so that we have at least 2026 and 2028, and then so we always have 2 trustees every 2 years come due, as opposed to having a 2-year period when there's no trustees coming up, a 4-year period, 4 years when there are no elections.
Yeah, kind of like the Olympics.
I think that would happen though, right? It would be
No.
it would be structured, it would be staggered. So, right, because the terms, there are trustees up this June,
Right.
and then there's someone who's termed out, so the next person would come in. Oh, I see what you
Would be
mean.
every
So
year.
there would be every year. Okay, we could take, we'll see how that works. Okay, I see the point.
Yeah, so you should structure it however you write the law such that
Yeah.
in the initial phase, there might be a 3-year
Yeah,
term.
it's a staggered phase, yes, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a staggered phase, yeah.
Can that be done?
Yes.
Yeah,
100%.
Anyone else?
Brian Curdy, 220 Lakeview East. I was a trustee from 1988. I 1996. And that was every 2 years. It came around quickly. I was not, and still not aware if we had term limits back then or not. No, in my 8 years, that was it. As far as when I started, we met on Monday nights. Couldn't get things done. And Wednesday nights were added on. And I can't imagine how much time you guys spend now. You're doing a great job. I don't envy the amount of time you put in. I think compensation, even this is minimal, but it's going to cost the village, cost us money. I think it's a well-deserved benefit. As Bob said before, things were voted down. And I think my recollection is those, I don't lose track of time, maybe 10 years ago, mainly in my recollection had to do with medical insurance. And part of that was lifetime benefits, which were pretty horrendously expensive. And I think that's what happened to that.
I think part of it, Brian, was it started out when medical benefits were actually affordable, and then during the term of it, it just got out of, they just went sky high and out of control. So when the medical benefits ended, it cost the village $72,000. So it went from being affordable to being crazy. If we had that now, what is the family now? $30,000?
A year.
Yeah, so if we had medical benefits now, like 150 plus the life, so
Doesn't work.
it just got out of control, and that's why, we appreciate getting rid of them, because we would be saddled with that cost now.
So I think the board should be compensated tremendous amount of time and responsibility. One of the things that bugged me when I was a trustee was we did a bond, and I believe it had to do with the volcano canal. We were like to having that perfect storm. And we were the first village to use plastic wood, and I had the good fortune of being here when we started recycling. And voting on a bond was clearly not in my field of expertise. I'm a dentist, and voting, it really scared me to be voting on a bond that I really knew nothing about. And so you guys put yourself at risk, and maybe there's whole Clonmels clause, I don't know, but term limits, I don't think it matters too much. 4 years is probably gives you a chance to do things, and that's it.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Anyone else? Carly?
Hi, Carmike Pettit, 480 Pine Acres. With respect to the compensation, look, I, along with a number of people in this room, have been a volunteer in this village for many years in many capacities, and we do it willingly because we care about the community. The amount of money that you're voting on is nominal, no question about it. I can't imagine it's going to move the needle in your lifestyles. Pat, you had mentioned in the last meeting, that every 2 years you have to put out a flyer. Well, everyone has in the past, but now you need to be reimbursed for it, in a sense. So, and you always have stipends. If you put money, if you extend money out for an event, you can, I'm sure, get reimbursed through the village. Okay, it's a reimbursable. They're reimbursables. The concern I have is not necessarily the amount of compensation that you're asking for, which is nothing. I'm looking forward. There'll be a board down the line, and we're long and gone, okay, that may feel that 20,000 is appropriate. And you're opening the door by not putting this into law and limiting it definitively in the law so that a law has to be changed in the future to increase pay. You're setting the table for an increase, not maybe among you. How do you feel about getting an increase in the next 5 years? Would you vote on that?
To put that, let me just interject that you have to have a public hearing on it. It would have to be in the budget. It has to be a line item in the budget The budget is subject to a public hearing every year. So if a future board wanted to increase a salary, which would not take effect during their term, would have to take effect during the next term. Because if you're going to increase or decrease a salary during a 2 or 4 year term, that has to go out to referendum. So any increase would be a year, would take effect at the next term. Okay, elected officials, if they give themselves the $5,000, $2,500, that stays for their entire term. And but you'd have to be, that would always be subject to public hearing. So nobody would be doing anything under the cover of darkness. It's the judgment of a future
I
board.
never suggested
let me
that.
just
Hold on, John, I'm not done. I never suggested that.
I know, I'm
Going
just
to
saying,
cover
well, there's a
Let
concern
me say this,
that you have a
John.
runaway board that will do things, but it'll always be subject to public hearing.
I understand that, John. However, the health insurance that Mr. Curdy referred to, that John referred to, and the conversation with Mr. Curdy as well, there was one person present at that meeting when they had the public hearing on it in the village. One person. I've got the documentation.
It wasn't a public hearing, it was just a vote.
It was just a vote, even worse.
Was that
To make
at
it,
work
so,
meeting?
look, what I'm trying to say is,
I
it's
understand.
better defined in the law. And if the board feels compelled to receive remuneration, and I have no issue with it, because you do work hard, I know what it's like, so you can't preach to me, okay? But at the end of the day, if you're committed to being nominally compensated, then I would put this in the law and make it hard-coded. Don't leave it up to a public hearing, because that's, and the ability, it provides the ability to more easily push it through.
Carmine, we could give ourselves compensation without a public hearing.
I understand.
We could have started the whole thing without even a public hearing. We could have put it on the agenda, voted on it tonight and say thank you very much and moved on. But now, since we are putting it on referendum, which Charlie said 10 times to me, I didn't have to, we're doing it that way and everything is going to be there. So, and then once it's on the books, the way we're doing it, you do have to have a public hearing to change it. So,
Understood, but if you put it in the law, it's a higher degree of compliance and disclosure to do it. Sorry, I
Problem with
disagree,
putting
it's
it
not the
in-
first time.
Well, let me just respond to that. I understand the question. There's uniform consent across municipal bar and NICOM, et cetera, that putting a numerical amount of a salary in the law is not preferable, that it should be in a line item budget. I didn't make this up, I followed this.
The law will result in a line item budget. Put it in the law. If you're committed to this level of compensation, you feel that it's appropriate, I don't see why you would object.
Well, two things. One is, Charlie's told us time and time again not to put this out to referendum. We decided to do that because not too long ago, I was sitting on that side, and the trustees and the mayor at the time were getting lifetime benefits that were voted on at a working meeting. And we didn't feel that was fair. And the reality is, the reason that got rescinded was because there was a public outcry by the village residents saying that is not okay, we never got a vote on it, and that's how it got rescinded. Fast forward, let's say we're gone, new board comes in, and they say, I want a $60,000 budget for the mayor. I would think the residents of the village would run that out of town. I just personally
It
think
doesn't
that.
bar them from approving it.
I agree with you, but what we've done now is created a poison pill, so to speak, because it now does have to go through it has to go through a public hearing. Where really, you don't have to do that.
But the public hearing is just a function of listening to opinions. It may not even influence the board. They may say, we don't care.
I agree with you.
But
I
it
agree
makes no
100%.
difference, because if you're gonna have a local law or a budget, it's the same effect. It has to be advertised, you have to have a public hearing, residents have to be responsible, read, come, and comment.
So if it's
Whether
this-
whether it's the pragmatism, whether it's the functionality of a line item in a law or a line item in a budget, it's the same process.
But so then why would you object to putting it in the law? Just
Because that's not,
NICOM says
I will tell you,
it's not
the
preferred?
pragmatic reason is that that's not the way the village bar wants it done. That's not the way it's traditionally done. It is done as a line item in a budget. I have not seen a village that has a statute that says the mayor shall be compensated $4,000. It is a line item in a budget.
anybody else?
Joe McDermott, 545 again. Charlie, with all due respect,
Yeah.
I'm going to be polite right now. Look, I understand the need for compensation because you work hard, right? to put it on the ballot is the correct thing to do. But what I wonder is if it's the right time to put it on the ballot. Because we raised the cap was 2.5%, you went to 4.5%. Back in 2017, I believe, when my board came up with it, it was $6,000 for the mayor, $3,500 for the trustees. We had a public hearing just like this, and the residents told us that it wasn't the right time. We didn't want you to pierce the cap by taking compensation. You all knew what you signed up for, and at that time, I rescinded, I had Charlie, Mr. Castellaro, rescinded from the ballot, because my board up there listened to the people in the audience and said, you know what, we're going over the cap, we have other things we want to do. And I talked to a bunch of people over the weekend, and said, you know what, I don't think this is the right time to do it. I said, well, give me an example. I said, well, they want compensation, they all knew what they were getting into. You all ran twice, except for you, Bill. This might be the first time you might decide that it's not for you, but if you do run again, you're like, okay, I know what the game's about. We had a GoFundMe page for playground equipment, and then they turn around, and now we want compensation. So people out there are like, you know, that's...
They get the right to vote, Joe.
You know?
Yeah,
But
well,
I guess...
I don't think breaking the cap had anything to do with people being against the first time you did it. When you guys were doing it, you didn't do your homework, you didn't do this, you didn't explain
John,
stuff.
I did plenty of my homework.
It wasn't presented at the meeting.
Yeah, but yes, it was.
It wasn't just.
I'm not going to debate you on that, but I had plenty of people in my
I was
office
here,
and stuff.
I was here.
Okay.
It wasn't
Well,
done right.
I don't want to debate. I'm just here to just...
But again, that $15,000 would still have us over the cap.
Okay. Mr. Castellaro, just because someone doesn't want you to do it, don't mean you can't do it. When I was there and we had it, you advised us it was okay to put the amount in the law. That's what you advised my board.
I don't remember that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so my
I don't
question,
remember that.
if you
I don't
did,
remember
because
that.
it's in the minutes. So my question is, did you advise my board the wrong way, or you advised this board the wrong way? Because you can't have it both ways.
Okay, first of all, I don't know why you're so hostile with me.
Because it gets me upset.
Well, it
because you're
shouldn't get you
saying two
upset.
different things.
It shouldn't get you upset, number one. Okay, relax. Number two, I don't recall giving you that advice. If I did, I was incorrect. Well, let me say this. This is what I said before. The village bar, the municipal bar, and NICOM have a preference for doing it in a line item as a budget. Is it strictly prohibited to do it in a local law? Probably not. But they don't want it that way. They want it as a line item in a budget. It provides flexibility. That's why. They don't want it as a salary in the statute. They want it as a line item budget. This way, for a whole bunch of reasons. One of them financial. When you're looking at it, you can see how much, what it costs to run the village and what the salaries are. Number two, you have a responsibility to vote on all the money that the village spends in one document. You can't line item something out of the budget, vote on it separately, then stick it back in the budget. You have to vote on the budget as in the whole. And number three, then you get into referendum issues, which we talked about earlier. So there is a preference to put it as a line item in a budget. I don't recall what I told you 7 years ago, Mr. Mayor. Let's assume you're right, okay? But the village bar, like I said, I didn't make this up. I used NICOM, I talked to the municipal attorneys, I read the case law, I read the statutory law. The consensus and the preference is to put it in as a line item in the budget. For the reasons I
Is
just
your
stated.
concern the amounts being increased by people down the road? What is your concern?
I don't know if it's the right time to do it. That's what I said. I'm not totally against compensation. I put it up for my board. I'm just saying it's the right time, you know? And the reason I bring this up, there's other things the board does up there that could, let me slow down. There's other things that the board does that could be considered compensation, you know? So when you talk about compensation, is it just money, or can they get other things?
Joe,
in the
tell the
line item
people,
that can be
Joe, you
compensation?
foiled our expenses. We attended the Suffolk County Village Official Association golf outing. We also attended the Village Clerks Association golf outing. So if that's what you want to call compensation,
Yeah, that could
we
be-
plead guilty. We went to these events, and
Okay,
we supported the organization that I'm now president of, and the one that Nicole's deeply
But-
involved.
Which is a perfectly legitimate and legal expenditure.
But that's could be my point. There could be things coming up that could be considered compensation.
Right.
That's how you got started, Mr. Mayor. You didn't want the board to get compensated. So my
No,
question...
no, that's not how I got started at all, Joe.
Well, let me just answer.
I've been involved in this village for 32 years, Joe.
Anyone's entitled to change your mind. Why would you change your mind and you think compensation now? When years ago you stood right over there at a public meeting and said, I do not think the board should be compensated. So now you change your
Are you
mind.
talking about your board or the previous
My
board?
board. You sat right over there, you stood up, it's in the minutes, you said, I do not think the board should be compensated. So
I thought you did a terrible job presenting it to the public. You sat here and said, we deserve to be compensated because we do a lot of work.
Yeah.
That was your whole thing.
And yeah, you're right. And you said, I do not believe the board should be
I
compensated.
don't think I spoke out against it. I could look it up. But
You did, it's in the minutes. Should
okay,
I look it
I'm
up?
fine. Again, you did a terrible job trying to present it to the public.
Listen, we're going back and forth. I think the point of the matter is that we're putting it out to the residents. If the residents say no, the residents say no.
Okay.
It's a done
But
deal.
I'm just asking why he
No,
changed his mind.
I understand what you're
That he
saying.
didn't want it.
You're trying to be argumentative.
Question.
I'm just saying, we'll put it out to the residents. And if the residents don't want it, they could just say no on the ballot.
It's going to pass.
The great thing about that is that's a democratic way to do it.
If they want to vote against it, Joe,
They
it's
can.
fine. We're encouraging people to get out to vote.
Right.
How many competitive elections have there been in the last 8 years? Like none, or a couple. There's been a couple of elections. You ran, I think, twice. I don't know who else.
Well, this is probably going to be one because it's a hot
Great.
I would love everybody to come out to vote, Joe.
That's the process.
We send out more information to the residents than I think anybody has ever had. We email, we Facebook. We encourage people to go to the library tomorrow to talk to the police. I send out as much as I can. I put things out on Facebook just to generate the conversation with people. Okay, so yeah, so it's just, there's right ways and wrong ways of doing things, and we think the way we're doing it is the right way. And if people are against us, this is, my last year. I'm the only one I think who knows enough history to be sitting here doing this. So. Go ahead.
Two quick points. So, with respect to the term limits, the 4-year term would basically, I think it's a
Do you mean
strong,
term limits or terms?
the 4-year term.
Extending
Not
the
term
term.
limits, the term.
From 2 to 4 years.
Correct.
The elected term.
Correct. And this might be a little, the term might be a bit aggressive. I think it disenfranchises people to an extent. In the context of the ability to vote every 2 years, so that if they don't like the job you're doing, in 2 years, they can move to vote you out. Now, whether that happens or not is a function of the popular vote. I understand that. But doing it in 4 years and you're doing a terrible job and you don't show the commitment, well, basically now we have to endure 4 years of your poor performance. So, as point well made, we've had uncontested elections for a long time, so the fact that you don't have to necessarily put out a flyer anymore, because one vote and you're done. So in the end, especially in the context of uncontested elections, you've got the ability to spend 8 years continuing a plan or even developing a plan, because ultimately it has to be passed on to the next board. You can't do everything in 4 years or 8 years or 12 years, okay? So I don't think it's a good idea to extend to 4, simply because you're basically taking our right away to vote someone else in that we feel might be able to do a better job.
So, if I can, I'll respond. So in that, what you said is the genius of 4 years, because there's not enough people involved in the village politics and the day-to-day operation of this village. So by going to 4 years and going to 12 years and going to compensation, you are now going to have a bigger pool of people hopefully coming to our meetings and being more involved in the day-to-day. We have people saying to us that they're against us getting health insurance. We should drop the health insurance that we have. We don't have health insurance. We don't get it through the village. There's a lot of, unfortunately, people who are misinformed about what we do on a day-to-day basis. We put how many emails and flyers about the traffic study, and people thought we had speed cameras on Orinoco on the roads over there because it's just not informed. You know this, you ran, you guys know this. The genius of this is that now maybe people will pay attention and say, hey, I really need to understand who is running my village. When I'm done, I want to make sure we have good people up here So my taxes aren't going up, that our village is maintained, our property values are maintained. So in what you're saying, I'm saying, I think it's a good thing. But your opinion is respected, I respect what you're saying, respect what Joe's saying, but again, we're gonna leave it up to the residents to make that ultimate decision.
So and then in conclusion, okay, with respect to the compensation, all things being equal, we're probably gonna see 250 people show up to the polls.
Great.
It's uncontested.
No, I think it'll be more.
I think
we're going to generate more because we'll put out, we have probably 2 more mailers going out before the election, and we'll remind people to vote on it again. Like we did here, we encourage people to come. But I was expecting more people, I was hoping more people would come, but we'll send it out one more time. Not, half of a flyer, we'll have the information on it. So
chances are people who support you are going to ask you, how will we vote on the referendums? And you're going to say to them, vote yes. Okay? So you're not really pooling.
I think I've told people to vote what you think is right for you and your village.
You're not pooling. Here's the problem with elections in general. Not everybody votes. So you really never know how everyone really feels. That's just the practical reality of politics. But if we had the ability, ideally, to get everyone in the village to vote on this, then I'd be convinced one way or the other. Until that happens, I'm not.
Does that happen in the presidential election?
I said it's not practical.
I mean,
all I'm saying is I would be convinced if we got everybody to put pen to paper and say yes or no. Then I would say majority rules. And anybody who served with me while I was a trustee knows I always advocated for the referendums. Gets checked down because you can't do it, because it empowers the people with the right to vote.
But we are empowering the people with the right to vote by putting those referendums, Carmine. So I agree with what you're saying, but you're actually proving my point. We are giving people a voice. They can say no. That's the beauty of our democracy.
A lot of people feel apathetic that their vote doesn't count. That's different.
But that's not the village of Briarwood. If we get 200-300 votes, that's what makes a difference. So realistically, if you're that inclined against it, then go out and petition people to come and vote against it. Listen, I don't know what else to tell you. We're giving you the opportunity to speak about it.
You're not giving us the opportunity. We have the opportunity.
Okay, we're giving you the
Well,
opportunity.
That's half true. Because the referendum question on the compensation is not subject to referendum. This board is voluntarily putting it out there.
But what I'm saying is when it
The only
comes
thing
to
that's
voting,
subject to referendum
when
is
it comes
extending
to
the
voting,
elected
we
term.
have the right to vote on it. That's what I meant.
That's not what I said. Yeah.
Anyways, I've said too much. I apologize.
Anybody else?
Sharon Semino, 37 Orchard Drive. First of all, I just want to thank all of you for doing such a fantastic job, and it'd be sad to see some of you go. I definitely believe in the no term limits. I think that when Mayor McNulty was in office, I mean, God bless him, he was an icon, permanent fixture in this village, and he did a lot, and I don't even know if he was ever running against anybody. So God bless him, God bless you, John. If you want to, if you guys want to keep doing this, you have my support. You're doing a great job. And as far as the length of the term, I also think that 4 years is good. I think 2 years goes away in a blink of an eye. And if you want to continue to keep running, you're going to be spending, once you get into the end of your second year, then you're going to be taking more time away from your own life and the work that you do in the village to start campaigning. Because not everybody knows, like I think Pat was saying, that not everybody follows all the politics. So they don't know, they may not necessarily know you guys. So I think that takes away a lot of time from you guys to have to campaign every 2 years. For compensation, I think it's more than fair. I serve on a board, I'm on the board of ECLD, and we don't get stipends or anything like that. We don't get reimbursed for things. But even if you guys do get reimbursed, I mean, I'm sure I don't have to tell you a lot of the stuff you don't put in for, babysitters. Are you putting in, when you're here and you don't have somebody watching your kids? No, you're paying a babysitter. There's just a lot of things, sometimes it's just too tedious to put in for. So I think it's more than fair. And even though we are a small village, no matter how small the village is, you can't plan on things like COVID or Hurricane Sandy or Superstorm Sandy, which, I don't have to tell you guys that when these events happen, you have to focus on your own family, but then at some point, you're dealing with the village. You have to take your time away from the safety of your own home and your family to run a village and make sure the village is safe and maintained. So you can't put a price tag on that. So somebody has to do it. I mean, poor Ross Gordino from Babylon died in the middle of COVID, the poor guy, you know, I mean, it was a horrible time, and you guys did a great job dealing with, you know, the resources that we had. So as far as I'm concerned, I think all these things that are being proposed, I think it's a great plan. So, yeah, I'm support it.
All right, thanks, Sean. Anybody else? John?
John Clark, 122 Hiawatha. This one mentioned something. You people put a lot of time into this. And people don't realize, when you're away from your house, putting time into the village, you've got to hire a landscaper. You can't cut your own grass. You can't do your own painting. You can't do your own plumbing. You can't work on your car. You've got to hire somebody to do it. And this kind of takes the sting out of it. This is the way I feel. I've had talked to other people who worked in jobs where they got a lot of overtime. And they said, yeah, I'm getting a lot of overtime, but I'm paying everybody else to do what I normally do myself. And it's not going to break the bank if I take some of the sting out of paying these people to do other work around the house and whatnot. And I don't see any problem with it. You look here on the paperwork right there. The villages that are zero are very small villages. So, you know, like I said, it might take the sting out of the work around the house and whatnot.
Thanks, John.
A couple of questions. The term limit thing there. First, Pat, just a quick comment. I don't think it's up to the trustees to judge if no one's going to run. That's why you got to run 4 years. If no one runs, if you're up and no one runs, then you could be considered holdover. But I don't think that should be used, well, no one wants to run, should we go to 4 years? Now, up to you guys to decide if someone wants to move into the village in a year and run. So that's kind of a little, I don't agree with that.
Well, the history of the village
Yeah, but
is
still
that
not
there are
up
not
to-
many contested
Yeah, but
elections.
it's still not up to you. You know, it's not up to the
That's
trustees
fine.
say, no one's going to run, we got to go 4 years.
Just going by the
Until no one
history.
runs, then it could be a holdover, and then if you have that problem,
Okay,
but
just
it has to come up.
stating facts, okay?
The term limits, if it passes on the June, there's 2 trustees up this year, right? Tom, you're not running, hopefully we get another body, which you guys are gonna have to do for life. But Mr. Fortune, you're up.
That's a compliment.
You're up.
Or else we'll stuck with you for life.
You're gonna go campaigning this year. What do you campaign on, in 2 years, or do you campaign on 4 years?
I'm just campaigning, well, first of all, I
2
think
years.
it's 2 years anyway. I
2
don't-
years.
I don't go to 4.
The
but
4 years doesn't take
I
effect.
campaign on what we did.
The
over
4 years
last
doesn't take
6
effect until
years,
June
7 years.
2026.
So,
I campaign on what we
but
did.
he's up in
what we did.
27.
No.
So he has to do 2 years and then the 4 years kicks in?
Yes,
Okay. All right.
that's exactly right. You have to finish your term.
Right. So
So that's
that
what's
means,
gonna-
how long you been a trustee so far, I ask?
This will be my 7th year, I believe.
7th year. You put 2 more on top of that, that will get you to 9, right? And then you want to add another 12, you want to make it possible that you could be here another 12 on top of that. That would be 19 years.
No, it's consecutive.
I think it would still turn out at 12 total, if I'm
12
not
total?
mistaken. Yeah.
Well,
So
that's
there's
the,
something I'm not missing in the math.
no. Mayor McDermott is correct. The question is an open question in the law as to whether or not the term limits would affect this board. So in other words, if your terms are up, you're running under the 2-year terms,
Right.
they're up.
Right.
But now you're running again under the 4-year term. There's an open question as to whether or not these term limits, would you be bound by the prior term limits, or you are now, if you run again for the 4-year term, are you bound by?
Well, I assumed I was bound by the original, so.
Yeah, but, well, I would, my
I didn't
legal
think, I didn't
analysis.
think the clock would start.
Yeah, my legal analysis would be that you would be bound by prior years, but it's an open question, so.
I would say you're bound by the original.
That's what I signed
The
up.
board's gonna bound himself by
I
the
would
original.
assume that
So
I'd be done.
if
after
he
this.
runs 2 years, and then that law, once we get rid of this law, that was put in
The split- the
116
split
was
authority.
the term was put in at 116 when I put the 8 consecutive year, 4 consecutive.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, you're up in June.
I'm done.
Is he a bit, I'm saying, but is he allowed to run because that law expired?
You see, technically, in my legal opinion, yes, they would be. However, there's split opinion on that. There's two schools of thought on that. The problem with our village and a lot of villages is that they don't have districts. You don't run from trustee district 1 or trustee district 2. You always run at large. So the question legally is, do prior term limits, because that law has expired, that's the exact language, because that 2-year term limit has expired, does the clock start anew, no matter who runs? The term limits don't necessarily go to the human being, they go to the office.
Right.
So because we don't have individual trustee districts, there is a question as to whether or not the limits apply to the current board, and once their 2-year terms expire, could they run again for a new 4-year terms? It's an open question. I think the board's going to be bound by the 2-year term, but it's an open legal question.
Right now, I have 4 consecutive 2-year terms.
Right.
I'm elected to a 2-year term, and now I'm up next year.
Correct.
Anybody new running will abide by the new rules.
Yes.
So I don't know what the confusion is, I'm done.
Well, you're done insofar as, man, this is an open question. You're done.
It's not open to my wife.
Well, that's exactly right, and that's the real authority. You're done under the 2-year statutory framework, but we're now changing the 2-year statutory framework to 4 years, and there is a question in the legal jurisprudence of this as to whether or not the 4 years, you would be barred from running on the 4-year term. It's an open question. Because it's a transition period there, you're running under the 2-year term, so it's an open question. I would recommend that the board abide by the 2-year term, and then new people would come in for the 4-year term.
Well, I think it's fair to the residents to have that question closed before they go to the ballot.
Well, it's not closed legally in the legal world.
It'd be important.
I can't close it. Only a judge can close it. It's not closed.
Because some,
When we put out the flyer, we'll explain that the existing board is abiding by the existing rules
Yeah.
for 2-year terms. So
Which is what we were thinking when we wrote this law.
we're going to abide by it. As far as the legal stuff, I'm not sure how you can word that, but we're going to put that we're abiding by existing 4 consecutive 2-year terms and elections starting next year. You know, if they're changed to 4 years and starts over.
the law could be in a cleaner form with more.
No, it can't, Mr. Mayor. No, it can't.
Charlie, we're fine. We're fine. Okay, we'll make sure that is clear by the time the election happens.
Your wife,
I hope she's not watching. She's watching, I have to say that, right?
Joe Suhan, 455 Pine Acres Boulevard. I got here a little late, sorry. You might have already covered this. I had a question about the security that was the flyer that came around about hiring private security.
Yeah, that's not the subject of this hearing now. We're doing the local law. That's in public comment, a few minutes away.
When we close this, then we'll talk about that. Anybody else on term limits of the compensation?
I got one more thing.
Chris Pace, Joe, go ahead.
Joe McDermott, 520 Potter Boulevard. I saved the best for last year. I noticed that it wasn't posted in the post office about the public hearing regarding the law. I noticed it wasn't posted in the library. I looked at the Islip Bulletin of the May 1st, and I looked in the previous Islip Bulletins. I didn't see it. So may I ask the clerk a question on behalf?
Yeah, go ahead.
Madam Clerk, did we post it?
We did.
On what date?
I don't have, whatever is on the website is when we post it
In the paper?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it should have been posted in all the public places as normal then?
Yeah, I can get you a copy of the iSlip where it was posted.
Because by law, if it's not posted, we're not supposed to be voting on this tonight.
We're pretty sure.
So if it's not posted in the places when we put the organizational meeting together, you say you're gonna post at the post office and the library. By law, if it's not posted in those two forms, in the form of the law that is written now, not in the flyer, it's illegal to vote on that thing tonight. And that's the law, so.
So the fact that everybody in the village got a flyer isn't acceptable to you? The
No,
fact that it's not at the post
no,
office?
Mr.
people
Mayor.
can't Right. So you couldn't have said this in the beginning of the night? So you were saying-
Well, we posted.
No, I want to wait to the end, because I want to break your fall. What do you think? Come on.
Okay, so everyone in the village got a copy delivered to their house?
But it wasn't in the form of a
Well,
public hearing,
we debate that.
right?
Well,
It was in the ISO.
But it wasn't posted at the post, I'm sorry, was it posted at the post office?
It was delivered by the post
It was
office.
not posted in the post office? I'm gonna find it right here. This here, I'm gonna present this to the board, because there's a couple things I highlighted in there that explains how to do a local law. So before you vote on it,
We know how to do it.
all right, but it's not posted, Mr. Castle. I'm going to present this to the board. I know you might have it, but just since I printed it out. So I don't know how you're going to vote on it when you didn't follow the proper procedures.
I'm fine with voting on it.
Let me just say this, okay. We published it in the item bulletin. The clerk says we follow the rules. If someone doubts that, they can take the proper avenues and challenge that, and I doubt that would be successful.
Okay.
When you have a flyer sent to everybody, I understand what the law says, Mr. Mayor, but it's not the statutory writing of the law when it comes to publication.
Yes,
It's
it is.
knowledge, no, it's not,
No,
respectfully,
you're
no, it's
very
not.
disappointed, because when I was a mayor, you explained everything different to me.
No, I
So
did
either
not.
you lied to me, or you're lying to them.
Mr.
And you know
Mayor,
you're wrong.
But Joe, isn't this flyer
That's not
posted at
true.
the post office?
No, it's not, and that's not in law form where people are gonna know that what the law says. That's,
Okay,
you're
but
gonna say, talk about
If
it.
you go to the post office right now, this flyer is there, both sides.
That's not good enough, and you
Okay,
know
the
better,
fact that
because
it
you
says
should
the
bring
Board
your
of
nosy
Trustees
balls, you
will hold a public hearing on
shame
May
yourself.
7:30 to discuss the potential changes to the laws.
Potential changes. This year, you're voting on the law.
So we put out a nice yellow piece of paper.
It doesn't matter, John, you know you're wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's bullshit, what it is.
I make a motion to
Such a
close the
hypocrite.
public hearing. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
okay, then I need two other votes, Mr. Mayor. I need a motion to adopt local law 19-9, which extends the office of mayor and trustees from 2 to 4 years. That triggers the referendum process.
It's not written on there. Repeat that, Charlie?
Okay, I need a motion to adopt local law, proposed local law 19-9, terms of office, which extends the terms of office of mayor and boards of trustees from 2 to 4 years.
I make a motion to approve that. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And then I need a motion to send local law number 6-2025, section 19-13, compensation of officers to referendum.
Make a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay?
Next on the agenda, each year we apply for downtown revitalization grants from Suffolk County. It's given us the sidewalks extensions, the bricks, it gives us the lamppost. And our next phase is from the new apartments by Sheehan and Company to the post office. We have some of that money approved, but we're adding light poles and some trees and things. So we have to pass a resolution in order to apply for this grant. So this will be to get that money for the rest of the trees and lampposts for that project. So I make a motion to adopt resolution 2-2025 to apply for the Suffolk County Downtown Revitalization Program, round 23. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Next thing is to approve public assembly application for Mary G. Clark School to reserve Walker Beach field trips Tuesday, May 27th, Wednesday, May 28th, Thursday, May 29th, 9:30 to 1:30 each day, rain date May 30th. They always use, we don't charge them for the park, but they do pay us for the lifeguards. So I make a motion to approve Mary G. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, in everyone's packet, they have a listing of what, some of the major expenditures. Make a motion to approve treasurer's report and abstracts. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, great. Before I open it up to the public, do I have the board have anything else to say? All right. Make a motion to open to the public. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Sure.
I had a question about security that the village is looking to hire. Is that going to be scaled back on code enforcement, or is that going to be in addition to?
No, what we'll be doing is, in lieu of the existing code officers we have at night, we're going to be hiring this service for all retired police officers. It's their car. They're under our supervision. They're going to be giving out tickets still. And people have been asking us for enhanced security at night. The police are busy. Tomorrow at that meeting, I will be asking them questions. They're going to look at us like we have two heads because, we're basically lock your doors, that's all they're going to tell us, to lock our doors. So at nighttime, we're looking for guys to be a little bit more proactive, and we're going to try it with this service. We'll give it 6 months, we'll reevaluate it, and then we may go back to the other. We're not laying off any of our overnight guys. We're going to offer them some of the open spots. We're going to allow them when we need some extra help for events and for, if we feel we need some extra help at the canal, then we'll bring them in. So no one's being laid off. They're being offered other hours, but, this is going to, it's going to cost us a little bit more.
Part two to that is how will that affect our taxes? Is there going to be an increase?
Yeah, well, everyone's taxes, our budget was passed last month. The average house is $40 to about $75 a month, depending on the size of your property. A year, I'm sorry, a year. Yeah, month. But, no, it's a year. So we went up, what's our thing, 4.5? We broke the state tax cap, so, we would have stayed under the cap. Say my taxes, if we stayed at the cap, we were going to go up $27. Since we went over the cap, now it's $54 for the year. So, yes, we broke the cap, but we're trying to do what we can. We got $44,000 increase from the fire department. Between that and the enhanced security, that both added up to close to $100,000. So that's what really broke us over the cap.
So the difference I'm understanding is that this security will be able to stop suspicious characters walking around going into my cars at night?
Yes.
As opposed to code enforcement who's not allowed to stop them, correct?
They cannot stop a moving, they still cannot stop a moving car, but anybody who has used this service, has given us, definite thumbs up. These are the guys, they're professional. Yeah, so
You're all prior law enforcement guys.
Yeah, I mean, one of the benefits is that they are ex-law enforcement, they know the Suffolk County PD. They also are going to be using their own vehicles, so that'll take off some of our wear and tear. And they, got a good reputation. They were down at TriTech. TriTech had some issues when they first opened, and those issues have been resolved. So, and the last thing is that, you can't be immune to what's going on in Bayshore right now, and that's feeding into Brightwood. So it's better to have a flashlight out than dark streets, and kind of keep that away from our roads. So.
we're going to be asking them for advice too. If these people don't feel at certain times, if they need assistance for a couple of hours, then we're willing to adapt that, and we'll see. We have to do something. We can't just keep telling us to lock your doors and stuff. So we're going to see if this makes a difference. We might not tell if it makes a difference, but if people aren't here complaining about their cars being broken in, then we feel there's a difference. But anytime you travel outside the village, we're not in a bubble, and there's definitely issues going on.
No, I understand that, and security cameras and lights are not a deterrent.
No, not at all.
No, I think they wave at the ring cameras, right? Because they have the mask on, they have the hoodies on. And it's not just outsiders, so we can't just say it's outsiders coming in. We do have issues with local people. Just, again, being in a bubble, I attended the Islip had a thing last week in West Islip about planning for the future, and it was really like 2 hours that I'll never get back in my life because it was a total waste of time. Because it was a professional group doing their 45-minute presentation, then they divided everybody into little groups to talk about things, and they did not want to know what was going on now. They were just concerned what was going on, in the future. And I asked them the question, are you taking into account what's going on now? And they said, no, they're worried about 2-3 years from now. So it was we had about, probably about 20, Joe was there, right? We had about 25, 30 Brightwater's residents there, easy. There was 100 people there, and I think they were expecting them to address overdevelopment, different developments throughout West Islip and other places here, and they totally ignored it. So they just went on. So, so we'll see. We're trying to work with the town, but we try to keep all of our efforts in the village. That's where our focus is at all times. So, we'd like to work with the police. We know they're overextended. And tomorrow night at the library at 7 o'clock, I'd like to see what they're going to say. They're going to tell me crime is down. I'm sure they're going to say that, but, we will know differently. So with this other person being killed at the train station, that means 4 people have been killed in, 3 or 4 months now in Bayshore? That's not good. So, anybody else? Anything general?
Hi, Jennifer Bartlett, 290 Windsor. Just a reminder, this weekend is our annual plant sale. So we hope to see everyone come out. We have lots of great stuff that we've ordered for this year. And we could always, of course, use volunteers. Thank you to everybody who has already reached out to me and offered to volunteer some time for Saturday, but we could always use extra sets of hands throughout the day. It doesn't matter, you don't have to be there all day. You could be there, for the morning to help us unload, through the busy selling period when we first open, which is chaotic the first hour and a half, and then afterwards to just continue re-merchandising the plants. Carmine does a great job of running around as we sell through, and then clean up at the end. So just again, and if there are any student volunteers, if you know of any students who want to volunteer, help run plants to the cars and whatnot, we do issue a letter afterwards for them for if they need credit for school or for honor societies or any scouts or anything like that. We can prepare a letter confirming their hours so that they get credit for it.
What time do the trucks come in this year?
Same time as usual. So we actually are going to start at 6:30 a.m. So same schedule as normal for Van Borgen being delivery.
Did Jeannie reach out to the schools with an email maybe about for volunteers with the kids? Maybe ask her tomorrow to send
That's for tomorrow. I don't know if she reached out to the schools or not. I know that we've had a couple of people approach us directly, and people have written in through the info@villageofbrightwaters.com email address. We got a couple of names that way as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rich Tahab, 10 Lakeview Avenue North. I have 2 things. One is this morning, and I sent you a photograph of
Yes.
it. I extricated a bird from fishing line. There's fishing line all over the lakes. It's time to really serious. I hate to be the Grinch, but it's time that we stop the kids from doing it. I would love the kids to be responsible, but they're totally irresponsible.
But Rich, so hopefully, so the thought is, my thought was, and actually I spoke with the board about this, now that we have the weedy boat, so when we had the lace guys down there, they were cutting a lot of branches that were in certain areas that a lot of the line was overhanging. So the thought was, let's get through the season with the weedy boat and actually trim some of those branches that are like overhanging, so that way maybe it would not create that issue. But give us some time to see if we can rectify the situation before we go and say, hey, we don't want kids fishing, because that's kind of like a Mayberry moment. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? So give us some time to see if we can clean that up internally first.
With Mike and the guys being down there more, we have 2 summer health hires. When they start getting going, there'll be people at the lakes, 3 days a week probably. So, part of their focus is to open their eyes and look around. On the first day alone, I think they got 4 or 5 fishing rods out of there, Mike. Out of the lakes with the boat. So they're supposed to be more eyes and ears now that they're down there now. But as we progress into a regular schedule around the lakes, hopefully the same people there all the time will be looking. Today they spent how much time cleaning the Cascade? It was a mess from the weekend. So,
The bird this morning wasn't in a tree. It was actually in a bush low down. So the guys really have to pay attention to not just being on it. But again, I don't want to be a Grinch, but,
No.
but it's, you know, we lost an osprey, and I don't know what happened to the great blue heron that got trapped. And this was a small bird, but it's this, you know, they're rooting it for everybody. They're rooting it for everybody. My second point is, I guess you know one of my normal rants is about the leaf blowers. And Newsday had a really nice piece the other day, and I'm sure a lot of people saw that. I'm sure you saw that. But there were a couple of really good ideas that were embedded in it. And one of them, which I think would be good, is if we raise the landscaper's registration fee and give a credit, i.e. you can go free, you can not pay it if you provide a documentation that you've gone electric. It's both a carrot and a stick. If they don't want to convert, they'll pay through the nose. If they want to convert, they'll get it comped. I don't know whether you saw that.
Yeah, I opened it up and right away I said, Rich Dayhab's going to call me. So
I didn't want it.
I'll review it. I'll sit down. If anybody else has leaf blower concerns, maybe I'll put something out there and we sit down and have coffee one time and come up with it. If we're going to do anything, it's May now. We have to do this for next year.
Exactly. But if you don't do it this year, then you'll say next year, we got to do it next year. That's the problem. You got to do it.
No, I know.
How many landscapes do we have now?
I think we're about 120.
That's really the problem.
So you hit them all with a $250 registration, and they get $250 off if they convert. That means in 4 years they're going to have to save $1,000 on it.
Yeah, we've got about 120 licensed and insured landscapers doing work in the village. And many of them only do 1 or 2 houses. So if we increase it, maybe we'll eliminate some. I mean, if people then will say, oh, we have to charge the people, but you know, if you spread it out over the summer, it's $5.
It's a joke.
$10.
It's a joke.
All right, I will sit with you for sure.
Okay.
You're buying. Brian?
What about enforcing the fishing rules? You used to have to be 16, 4 under or whatever, and you get a permit, you have to live here.
Yeah.
I mean, I even go around lakes all the time, and the kids from West Islip. I mean, I don't want, it's the Saturday Evening Post, as Rich just said.
I know.
They shouldn't be here. Many of them. And
These
I
are my
noticed-
friends from school.
Huh?
Now, if Brightwaters goes to Bay Shore, so if you have Bay Shore kids or Brightwaters kids, you say you can fish and I can't fish. It's, again, I go through this in my brain all the time. It's very, very frustrating. It's annoying. Every time we turn around, there's something with a thing in its neck or tied up. Right, Sharon? You're the person there too, right, Sharon? So,
Thank you for being concerned about that.
we have to put some more thought into it, Brian. We really do. Behind you, Sue. I think that's.
Susan Buckford, 307 Woodland Drive. About that, I was thinking, and I had read, somebody had even suggested it, that when the kids or when the families applied for the permit, that maybe they could have a, really early, it would have to be in early March or something, that they would have a little course that they would have to take on a Saturday morning, maybe invest the kids themselves into taking care and concern about the lakes and the birds and the ducks and anything else. And because sometimes they're fooling around, but I think if they were, you know, we're acting like it's our problem and it really affects them, but we're not doing anything to help these kids maybe learn how they should do it. Or how they should respect the lakes, or if you get a permit, well, you have to be responsible with this permit. You know, how do kids learn?
Yeah. All right, Sue. No, thank you. I'll get back to you on that. Thank you. Anybody else? John?
John Clark, 122 Hiawatha. A very quick question. The dog park. I know you can't fish in the canal, but Brightwater's residents, regardless of age, they can fish in the other waters around it?
In Gilbert Park, yes.
Excuse me?
Gilbert Park, yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, Jerry McNulty, 425 Pine Acres Boulevard. The upcoming village election is June.
The third Tuesday in June.
June 17th.
June 17th.
June 17th. Nominating petitions are when?
May 13th.
Nicole, what do they do?
I thought it was the 14th. I have it in my office.
You want to get it, please, Joe? Please. Anything else, Joe? You want to have this pause?
Well, no, well, they'll be available and then they have to be turned in on a certain date. Is that how it is?
Yeah, they have to be in by a certain date. In the Village of Brightwaters, our number is 75. So you have to have 75 legitimate signatures.
From village residents.
Village residents.
Correct.
March
Now,
3rd.
we follow, it's pretty straightforward, but you follow New York State election law, which is to get on a ballot.
No,
So
it's
I'm asking the village is pretty straightforward.
in the village election, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, so, you know, it's, I've heard of people get knocked off the ballot because of, you know, certain things,
Well, yeah,
or whatever like that.
The one
Something like
year,
that in the village.
the 1 year the guy handed in enough signatures, then he went away on vacation. He didn't realize that once you hand in enough signatures, the next day, Nicole sends out a letter, you saying you're accepting running for the election, and you only have like 5 days to return.
Okay.
So Mike came back from being away, found the envelope, and says, oh, I have to sign this and return it. And it was like 2 weeks instead of 5 days, so he could not be on the election, and then he ran a signing thing. Nicole is the head of the elections in the village. If people have any questions, she can answer any questions anytime that people have. So, like, everything should be geared toward asking you, right? Yeah.
So petitions will be ready when?
Well,
May 13th.
you have to put them in. You have to make up your own petition.
They got your own petition?
Yeah.
You can find them
They do on
online.
May
Yeah,
13th.
we usually refer
Okay,
people to.
they're doing May
75
13th.
valid signatures.
On
We're
May
not supposed to
13th.
be giving any advice.
Okay.
You don't give it.
We don't give advice, we do, you know, you can find anything on the Board of Elections
Yeah.
website.
Village
But
clerk's
if you have,
not supposed to give election advice.
Okay, so,
Well, she's the head of the Board of Elections in the village, though, right?
She is, but there's a policy that they
Yes.
prefer. People go out and do it on their own, but, yeah.
so if I was to run, my petition would be due on the before the 13th.
on the, yeah,
Close of business on the 3rd.
close of
Okay.
business.
Thank you.
All right, Carmen,
The security person will be unarmed, correct?
they're going to be armed.
Charlie, did you mention that they have adequate insurance?
They do. And our insurance company is reviewing it as we speak. And we have a call with them, but everything's fine. No issue with liability.
Thank you. Can I ask the question if they do have adequate insurance? Will the insurance, and I know the answer to it, and perhaps rhetorical, but will the company issue an indemnification to the village in the event of an incident and they get sued? Or are we going to be a party to the lawsuit? And we're
No,
gonna
they
be
won't
exposed?
issue an indemnification if you're a party to a lawsuit. That's normally how it works.
So the fact that they have adequate insurance is irrelevant?
Well, no, it's very relevant.
Well,
Because
to the
if
extent that the
somebody-
village can be a party to the
Well, the
lawsuit.
village can be a party to anything. Indemnification doesn't stop a lawsuit. Indemnification just talks about coverage.
Confers the liability to him.
Well, that's a judicial question technically, but, so, they had adequate insurance.
Is there anything defined in the law?
Not as much as you think, no, a lot of things are questions. Yes. So they had adequate coverage. The board wants them armed, they have adequate coverage, our insurance council has looked
But at
at
the last
it.
meeting, you said it was going to be unarmed, correct?
No, we're still in discussion.
Armed?
We're still in discussion, and these guys will be armed. I think they're going to give us the same one or two guys.
It was discussed.
The discussion was to give us the same people all the time, Carmine, so we're not training a new person every time. We want the guys in the village who know the village, and that's what we want to do. So, Ken?
This gentleman got a uniform?
I believe they are identified in their own uniforms, yeah.
And their own vehicle.
Their own vehicle, their own uniform. They're not going to be wearing the Brightwater's code officers' things. They're wearing their own, so.
For security, use a black shirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just going to say, we better be very careful with that, because we saw what happened in Patchogue. I don't know
Yeah,
what they paid out.
I think that was a Patchogue employee who did that, right? Was he a security guy?
The code enforcement officer was getting women coming out of the bar intoxicated, and he was taking them off and sexually abusing them. There was 2 women's complaints. He did get locked up. Now, I know there was lawsuits. I don't know what the outcome of it was. But they're very expensive.
We can't do things because of fear of what might happen. You know,
I didn't say you can. I said be very cautious about doing this.
We're trying to be, John. Thank you.
They got to know what they can do and what they can't do.
Yep. They're not police officers. There are code officers.
When does it start?
June 1st, around then. So as soon as the new budget kicks in. Anybody else?
Will the vehicles be identified?
Yeah. They'll be the ones that stop at the stop signs.
I have the packet here with the vehicle. If anybody's interested.
All right. Anything else? Okay, make a motion to close. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Good and fair.
They should have that traffic study. But it's not new. Listen, you're crossing the line. This is what we get. They push back. And then they cut it back. This is what we get.